This is a HeadGum podcast.
Hello and welcome to The Complete Guide to Everything, a podcast about everything. I'm one of your hosts, Tom.
And I'm Tim.
Tim, I'm not going to ask how you're doing this week.
Why is
because
that?
I don't care anymore. I know how you're doing. Fine. Everything's fine. Everything's the same. Nobody's done anything.
The world's different now. Isn't it weird how we're all in our... Yeah, every week we just say the same things.
Yeah. Look, we hate ourselves. So...
hate ourselves and our lives.
Right. And that was true before the pandemic, so it's even doubly true now. So we're changing up the formula a bit, and we're starting off the show solving a problem. Hey, start off the show on a positive note instead of just criticizing our lives. How about that?
Yeah. And I will say, Tom, I wish you had asked how I'm doing today. I think it's nice for you to...
How are you doing? But don't go into it. Just keep it brief.
I'm doing well.
If you had answered, not so good, actually.
Tom, let's solve a problem. In a segment we like to call Tim and Tom Solve Your Problems. Is this weird that we're doing this? I don't like this. All right, Tom, this comes to us from Spencer, and if you, listener, are listening and have a problem you'd like us to solve, you can email us at thecompleteguidetoeverything@gmail.com. And we'll talk about alien abductions in a minute.
I was going to say, if you've downloaded this episode because you've recently been abducted by an alien and you're desperate for information to make sense of it all, relax, we'll get to it.
Relax, Spencer's got a lumberjack problem.
Ooh.
Dear Tim and Tom.
I'll tell you what. There have been some lumberjacks that have had an alien problem.
Wow. Are you going to talk about them later, or is that
a
non sequitur?
No, stay tuned later in the episode.
All right.
People are going to think we have some weird new grift going on of or did they only get paid if people listen all the way through or something?
Dear Tim and Tom, a little while ago, while chopping stumps of wood in a forest in my neighborhood, an elderly woman called the police on me for walking around with an axe. Ever since, I've had trouble finding a place to do this hobby of mine.
Wait, what? All right.
He's chopping stumps of wood in a forest in his neighborhood.
Okay.
Not on his own property. I work at a 9-to-5 office job, counting dirt, and while it isn't difficult, it can be stressful trying to understand what civil engineers are doing in their plans, but I can't blame them for their own ineptitude. I don't understand what this guy's talking about.
No, I thought that was a euphemism, counting dirt, but it sounds like he's literally counting dirt that civil engineers are moving around. He should have given us a little more color on what his 9-to-5 job is, because this doesn't necessarily sound like a completely normal 9-to-5 job.
No, when he said counting dirt, I thought that was like slang. You know when Lucy and Ethel are in the chocolate factory? Uh-huh. And the chocolates come down the conveyor belt?
Right.
I could see them in that factory being like, the slang term for those chocolates are dirt. It's just like, yeah, get in there and count some dirt. And Lucy and Ethel have to like count and wrap up the chocolates.
Yeah, it could be slang for anything.
Mm-hmm. All right, to de-stress from this, Spencer says, which is from counting dirt. After work, I like to get a refreshing and meditative workout. Recently, I've been looking for forests on Google Maps Street View to find a new place. However, these places usually have very few drums lying around or no trees I can cut down. This guy talking slang.
He's got too much terminology that we don't understand.
No trees I can cut down. A blue tie around a tree means it's scheduled to be chopped, so I'll feel justified cutting out the bureaucratic middleman. So my question
but
is...
also imagine being a tree chopper working for the town government or something, and he comes to your job and some maniacs chop down all the trees already.
Then you get the day off. You don't tell your boss that I got to the forest and all the blue ribbon trees have fallen down.
Yeah.
You head over to Mickey D's and you get yourself a nice McGriddle.
And you sit in the parking lot, fire up Quibi, catch up on your shows.
Yeah, you can get through a lot of Quibbies. Emmy-nominated Quibbies, Tom. So my question is, how should I go about pursuing this hobby? Continue chopping in my neighborhood, stealthily carrying my axe, keep up the search for a new forest, or maybe just move to rural Montana and stay off the grid? Currently, I live just outside a major city. Thanks for the help. Big fan of the show, and feel free to use my real name or a made-up name if you want to make one up. Spencer.
Well, imagine if that old lady's listening to this and she's like, I knew it was him. It's Spencer.
Yeah, but... okay, my main question is there anything wrong with what Spencer's doing?
Or imagine if you're the civil engineers he works with, and he's referring to, going over your work as counting dirt.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, and the civil engineers, this dirt counter has the nerve to criticize me?
Yeah, but they'd never say anything because they're too polite.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're civil engineers.
Yeah, I get it.
Is he doing anything illegal? I'm sure there's some weird, town ordinance that he can't be doing this. Is he doing something wrong? No. And it's weird that I'm wondering if the lady called the cops on him because she thought...
Do you think this is what John Lewis was talking about as good trouble?
I think this is exactly it. He was talking about going to the forest, finding some trees that are already marked to be chopped down, and chopping them down before the government even gets
It's not legal, but it's right.
Right. Yeah. I'm curious if the woman thought he was chopping, just randomly destroying a forest tree by tree, or if she thought he was an axe murderer. Because axe murderers, very rare. And also, they don't just walk down the street with an axe. An axe is a horrible weapon to try and kill somebody with. Unless they're, already wounded, I guess.
Seems like you have a lot of insider information about this, Tom.
It's just common sense. Just give it just think about it for a minute and you'll realize that what I'm saying is true.
Look, I have a lot of questions about transporting sharp objects,
okay.
Right?
He's probably got a nice sheath for it.
For the axe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you just wear a dang flannel shirt, grow a beard, and what else? You wear one of those hats, those floppy hats with the ears on them?
Yeah, I was gonna say if he just puts on a one of those orange reflective vests. You can get away with anything if you wear one of those. People just think, he works for... He
looks official. Or he's prisoner doing work on the road, but either way.
Yeah, work detail. But hiding in plain sight, you can get away with it. That seems like a crazy way to relieve stress, like a very aggressive way to relieve stress. Probably works. Not faulting him for it.
I mean, I think there are probably other ways rather than just, is it the destruction or is it the, as he calls it, meditative aspect of it?
Probably. Well, if he's chopping stumps, then that's not even really that destructive.
Yeah, but you can obliterate a stump.
It's hard. It's hard work.
Yeah, but if he's at it for hours, day after day. Also, he lives outside of a major city. What forests and how many trees are marked to be cut down, honestly, Spencer? At some point, you're going to cut down all those trees, and then you're just going to start... Maybe Spencer goes out and buys some blue ribbon of his own.
Right. I'm sure there's a decent amount of trees that need to be chopped down. They're probably dead trees. They're close to power lines or something. You should be careful he doesn't get electrocuted through that axe.
Yeah.
It's one of those all metal axes.
Yeah, those are dangerous.
That are so popular nowadays.
But like, if I buy knives in the big city, right? If I go to Target and buy
if you head into Times Square to buy some knives.
No, but if I head into downtown Brooklyn and then take a subway back, and I have these 4 or 5 really sharp knives on my person in the subway. I mean, if those were not just purchased and being transported to my home, that'd be frowned upon me carrying those around, right?
There's a difference between if you've got them in a Target bag inside their packaging or if you've got them in cases on your belt.
Right. And I recognize that, but then it becomes if I'm a maniac that just wants to carry these around, I'm going to just put them in their original packaging and put that inside of a Target bag.
But even that kind of is better because at least that means it's going to take you a little bit longer to get to them.
Yeah, but guess what, Tom? The New York City subway takes a long time between stops.
That's
sometimes.
true.
And
yeah,
sometimes it stops
of
unexpectedly. Yeah, it's not like, whoa, how will I be able to get these knives out if you're a maniac?
That's like an idiot that I used to know. Kept a bat in his trunk, but he can get in trouble for that because it looks like you're, keeping the bat in your trunk as a weapon. So you would always keep a baseball glove and a baseball in there too. And I don't know if that works. It's probably better than if there's just a bat, but
if you have a baseball bat,
I'm just saying, Tim, you can carry the knives around. Just make sure you've always got a cutting board with you as well.
Right. And just practice your knife. You can actually just practice your knife skills on the subway. As long as you have a big enough cutting board, you get a seat, you put it on your lap. You can chop onions. Well, not onions. That'll make everybody on the train cry.
All right, Tim. Let's talk about alien abductions.
Now that we've solved Spencer's problem.
Yes. Did you reference that just so people can be sure the episode was recorded that way and not edited in post to be?
Oh, we should start doing weird stuff. We should record the show a lot more modularly.
Yeah, probably. I'm just thinking about a couple of weeks ago when I had to edit the show and I accidentally put up on Patreon a version where I told you I had to go pee. And then there was just like 2 minutes of dead air. So I don't want to get too crazy.
Yeah. No, I kind of like if it was jarring.
That's frequently what people say is their favorite thing about the show, when it's jarring to them.
That's what they like about entertainment programs in general. Just jarring and confusing.
You see
alarming.
You see that a lot in movie posters. The critics say jarring. Tim, well, speaking of jarring, how about this as a jarring experience? Waking up in the middle of the night because an alien's there and they're taking you to their spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
Could you think of a more jarring experience? Could you imagine that happening and you going, no, I'm going back to bed?
No, I wouldn't go back to bed. I'd be, I think, afraid. Would you be afraid if you were abducted by an alien?
Tim, I wouldn't live through it. That's how afraid I would be. I would die of fright pretty early into the experience, which I think is the only reason why it hasn't happened yet.
Do you think they have machines that would keep you from dying? Technology that they could hook you up to?
Yeah, but I don't think it would be any good. That's how scared I would be.
All right. Now, this is a classic Tom topic.
Yeah, is this a Myths and Legends episode?
Sure, if you want. What does that entail? Just
writing
the title?
Should we check with the board? See if it's allowed? All All right, myths and legends, alien abductions. Now, we've talked about aliens. We've talked about UFOs before, of course. We are an informational podcast. But we have not talked specifically about alien abductions. Tim, on a nightly basis, how afraid are you from 1 to 10 of being abducted by aliens?
On a normal night?
Yeah.
Tom, I'm afraid of a lot of things, and I'm afraid of a lot of irrational things as well. Like
Okay.
Not just,
Vampires, werewolves?
I'm probably more afraid of werewolves than I am of an alien abduction.
Well, that's just straight up stupid, Tim.
Tom, can I tell you something?
What?
I'm not very concerned at all about being abducted by aliens. I never have been. I can't think of one time where that's been a serious concern of mine.
Huh. I can think of hundreds of times where it's been a serious concern of mine.
I know that because I've been with you probably dozens of times, be it just like driving somewhere at night or like on camping trips or something.
That's the
and
worst
I've seen you maybe have a bit of an anxiety attack around the possibility of being abducted by aliens. And I know it doesn't seem like it's a bit.
No. I mean, especially, look, I love camping. I love the sleeping outdoors and stuff. But, boy, you're really taking your life in your own hands when you do that. You're really taking a big risk.
Rate these 3 dangers while camping.
Okay.
Alien abduction.
Uh-huh.
Bear. Mm-hmm. Mountain man.
Ooh. Alien abduction number 1, of course. Then mountain man, then bear.
Yeah, I'm just... bears are scary. Mm-hmm. But getting hacked to pieces by a mountain man.
Yeah,
whew,
I think I could reason. I could reason with a bear more than I could reason with a mountain man.
Yeah, I mean he's doing it for sport,
and he's been up on that mountain so long he forgets about the rules of society.
Yeah, he's enjoying this. This is the only joy he gets.
That's why he went to move to the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, a lot of UFO stuff in the news. We all remember the stuff the New York Times has done about the naval UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
I want to read a little bit. They posted an article that went a little bit under the wire here, outside of the UFO community, of course, but about a recent piece they did where they kind of casually dropped that the government has off-world transportation vehicles.
Tom, that was on the front page of the New York Times.
Well, it wasn't the headline.
It was not under the radar.
It was a little under the radar. Because
you guys aren't going to read about this in your newspaper. To the New York Times. It's the top story.
Well, look, but it's during the pandemic, Tim. Nobody's going out to buy the newspaper. They're not seeing the front page.
Tom, can I tell you something?
What?
I'm a digital subscriber to the New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
And now what I want to do is upgrade to get the Sunday New York Times delivered to my home. So I can be one of those jerks that like sprawls out on the couch on a Sunday morning with all the sections around. Oh, look, I'll read a little bit of the real estate section and then on to arts and leisure. One of those guys.
Uh-huh.
It's impossible to change your subscription in any way from the New York Times. You call up, they put you on hold, and they're just like, you got to do it online. You can't do it online.
Yeah, they want
I'm trying to give them more money. I'm trying to get them to deliver stuff to my house.
But they don't even want to run the risk that if they talk to you, you might cancel it. They're like, nope, we'd rather just keep them stuck on this. I always thought it was cheaper to get like a Sunday subscription with digital than just digital.
I wouldn't know. I can't get anybody to answer my questions about it.
Well, anyway, Tim, that's the least of our concerns right now in this world.
I can't put on NPR, make myself a chai latte, sprawl out on the couch with some farm fresh eggs.
Farm to table.
Yeah.
So they put out an article, "Do we believe in UFOs? That's the wrong question," by Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Keene, about kind of the stuff they've reported. And they're basically saying whether UFOs, unidentified flying objects, exist or not is not a question of belief. They do exist. Now, what they are, sure, that's nobody.
Military testing horrific things that they're going to do.
Right.
Horrible things.
Yeah,
secretly to people.
It could be something like that. And that has been, I think part of why the government's been a little more open about this stuff lately. My belief.
Because they're increasingly getting caught creating horrifying death machines, so they just had to be like, yeah, no, we don't know what that is. Weird, right, guys?
No, because the proof of these things is at this point indisputable, in my opinion. So their question, the government's question is, who's making this, and is it China or Russia? And if it is China or Russia, our two biggest adversaries, they've taken some quantum leap in technology that we haven't, and that's bad news. So we need to wrap our heads around it. And then if it's not them, well, then we got to figure out who the heck it is.
Why do you assume that it's not the U.S.?
Just because I don't think it's because the U.S. is... So you're saying you think that they might be lying about that they're making it, but then they're like, oh, who the heck's making these things?
Well, once somebody sees it and questions it, because it's not like the government is calling up the New York Times and is like, hey, guess what? We saw this crazy thing.
Right, but
it's reported by like a pilot or something.
Yeah, but those videos in particular were classified. And so, why would they be declassified if the government knew, oh yeah, that's our things flying around there?
Because it leaked first?
Did it? Yeah, it did leak. Yeah. I don't know.
The military doesn't go just like, hey, we're going to declassify this stuff because we don't know what it is.
They
Weird.
might.
Maybe we can enlist the public's help in determining whether this death machine was built by Russia or China or a terrifying superhuman alien race. I guess not superhuman.
Right. Well, I mean,
who knows? Maybe there's time travel involved.
As we've seen recently, when you go to the public and you say, hey, gear up those imaginations. Let's hear what you think is the cause behind things. It's worked out great.
Yeah.
Here's what we think based on the science, but we want to hear what you think. But so I just wanted to read this one part from it. But our latest article provided a more daunting set of challenges since we dealt with the possible existence of retrieved materials from UFOs, going from data on a distant object in the sky to the possession of a retrieved one on the ground makes a leap that many find hard to accept and that clearly demands extraordinary evidence. Numerous associates of the Pentagon program with high security clearances and decades of involvement with official UFO investigations told us they are convinced such crashes have occurred based on their access to classified information, but the retrieved materials themselves and any data about them are completely off limits to anyone without clearances, and they need to know.
Can I confess something to you, Tom?
Oh, do you know?
No, I tuned out everything that you just said.
That's exactly what the government wants you to do, Tim. Just tune it out. Just pretend it doesn't exist.
You
just
said
keep
they're
going.
the ones putting it in the newspapers.
To toy with us, to toy with people like me.
Give me the gist of what that quote was.
They're basically saying that the New York Times has high-level sources that have told them, oh, yeah, that we have stuff. I don't know about the stuff. I don't have access to it, so I don't know much about it, but I do know some of these things have crashed, and we have retrieved the wreckage from those crashes.
Okay.
And I think again, we're talking about abduction, not this, but I think genuinely the government I don't believe in the idea of like, we've got an agreement with the aliens and they're talking with the president, because, when we go and find, I don't know, some like new races of, some new race of prairie dogs or something, are we like, all right, who's the leader here? Let's start exchanging information. I think the government has no clue what this stuff is either.
Are we discovering new prairie dogs?
I don't know. It was the first animal that popped into my head.
So you think the government is just as confused as old Timmy and Tommy?
Well, not as confused as me, but yeah, as confused as you.
So you're more confused even than me?
I'm not sure. I lost the thread there. Anyway, Tim, what we're talking about is alien abduction. We're talking about aliens coming and taking somebody and doing what they want with them as they please.
How often do you think this happens?
I don't. It's tough to say because,
like, if you had to estimate globally,
yeah,
how many alien abduction events happen in a month?
It's really tough to say. I would say I would guess conservatively that only less than 5 happen a month.
A month, but every month? So you think like 60 a year?
Sure.
Probably worldwide.
But there are way, way more than that reported.
Really?
Yeah. There's a lot of people that say that this has happened to them, Tim. And that's a problem. Like, so if you were abducted by aliens, what would you do afterwards? Would you tell people?
I think it would depend on what happened. I probably would.
Okay.
I would tell you.
All right. Well, yeah, because I'd believe you.
Yeah,
and I'd be able to
fodder for us to talk about on this.
So you would talk about it on the show?
Yeah.
So if I start off with, how you doing this week, Tim? Not so great, Tom. I had a very strange experience last night. I was taken from my bedroom and brought up aboard an alien craft, and a number of experiments were performed on me.
Are you asking me, like, would I contact the authorities, whoever that may be?
Yeah, if you would contact the authorities, and how wide would you how many people would you tell about this?
I don't know. I think it's hard to say. I think it depends on
probably how
unbelievable
traumatic
it is, how traumatic it is. Yeah.
Right.
And I don't want to. I'm finding it hard to think of something lighthearted and funny to be about. Like, if I went through a traumatic experience and was afraid that people would not believe me, what would I do? Because that's not funny.
So I
don't like this line of questioning, Tom.
I was thinking about that a lot because I was reading about. Do you remember this book? Like it was in the late 80s, early 90s, I think. Called Communion, and it just had an alien on the cover, and it was the scariest book cover you've ever seen in your life.
No, I don't recall.
You don't remember this? Look it up.
I'm not
Whitley
as
Strieber.
into alien stuff as you are.
You'll recognize this. And then they made a movie about it with Christopher Walken. And it's a movie where Christopher Walken goes, "Is there somebody behind there?" And an alien pops its head out from behind the dresser. Do you remember?
Strieber. No, I don't remember any of this.
Well, that's not good, Tim. They might have wiped your memory.
Oh, is this the Men in Black you're talking about?
No, not the Men in Black. The aliens. The grays. The gray aliens.
No, I haven't seen this book. And
really?
I don't recall that film either.
I remember that book also, like, for whatever reason, always being prominently displayed at the public library in our town, and just being like, always so excited to go to the library, and then seeing that and being like, oh, I'm not going to let this ruin my time at the library. I'm not going to let this ruin my time at the library.
I was just looking for the Where's Waldo section.
But I was reading about this guy who wrote it, and it two things. So one is he was a novelist before this happened to him, before he claims he was abducted.
Ah, so a guy that spins tales for
Right.
a living.
But
For attention.
He is abducted from...
That's what novelists are. They just want attention.
He was abducted in upstate New York from his family's cabin, and like neighbors saw this happen, or at least saw like the UFO, saw bright lights. It happened repeatedly to him, and it got to the point where he was like, oh, enough, stop.
Enough is enough here.
Yeah, because like I guess every time they still did it like very dramatically, and he was like, whatever, just get it over with. But I was reading an interview about him recently, and he is where the idea of the anal probe comes from. The idea that aliens abduct people and give them an anal probe. And it was in this interview, and he's talking...
South Park episode? Yeah, it's very funny.
And he's talking about South Park and something else.
Oh,
and
really?
like, and how he's like, imagine, you know... the most horrible thing happening to you being raped, and it's this incredibly traumatic experience, and it turns into a joke for all of pop culture. Which, like, if he's telling the truth, like, God, what a nightmare. What like, the only thing more awful than that happening and not having any way to really explain it even to yourself is that then it just becomes a joke. For that the entire world understands as shorthand.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
We'll have more after the break.
Tim, we just took a brief break there, and when I came back, you were gone, and I thought the worst. I thought the worst had happened.
That I was abducted by aliens?
Yeah, and that they were going to come for me soon, that they heard us talk. I mean,
so you weren't concerned about me. You were concerned that you were next.
Yeah, actually, in retrospect, I would feel better about being abducted if I was being abducted with a friend.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because then, honestly, you would have somebody to talk about with it. And you'd be like, remember when the aliens took us? That shit was crazy. Nobody else will ever believe us, but...
And before we go a little bit further, during the break, you did want to just make clear that you think South Park is cool, despite that. You don't want anybody to think you're uncool.
They speak truth to power, Tim.
I know it's a joke on. I'm thinking of that SNL sketch, but. Are there support groups for people who believe they have been abducted by aliens?
Yeah, absolutely. What SNL sketch was that?
Oh, it's one of those recurring sketches where it's like there's there's a bunch of normal people and then there's a weird person.
I haven't seen one of those sketches. That sounds funny though.
And it's it's people talking about getting abducted. They're going around describing their alien abduction stories, and the first few people have these kind of like pleasant, like, oh, and there was all this technology, and then I felt a euphoric feeling or whatever, and then it gets to Kate McKinnon, who is playing the weird person who describes
off-brand for her.
Yeah, horrible trauma, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Not to be a scold or anything. It's funny. There's a lot of funny stuff in there. There's a lot of funny trauma in that sketch. but then everybody's, and then it cuts to everybody, and they're all like, "What? Man, this weird person is saying weird stuff."
She's very funny. Do you still hold a grudge from the female Ghostbusters movie though? You refuse to watch anything any of those women are in?
Tom, don't even joke about that.
So, Tim, you might be sitting there thinking, You know what? This is fine. I don't care about some yokels out in the country getting abducted by aliens. It can't happen to me living in the
What do
city.
you mean, flyover country you're talking
Yeah.
about? I care about those people.
Well, guess what, Tim? One of the landmark UFO abduction cases happened in Manhattan.
Manhattan Beach?
No, Manhattan, New York.
Oh, wow.
This woman,
New York City. This is my stomping grounds.
she was abducted from a closed apartment window into a UFO that was outside. I'm reading about this from liveabout.com. I've read
Thanks
about
for citing your source there.
I've read about this case before, but this has kind of the briefings from it. So one of the crazy things about this is that there are I think two guys who are witnesses to this, and they were crossing over the Brooklyn Bridge at the time at 3:00 in the morning, and they saw like a UFO and a lady getting levitated out of her apartment building into a UFO.
A couple jackasses stumbling home across the bridge from a bar at 3 a.m.
Tim, they were in a limousine.
Oh, whoa. Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, these weren't.
What year was this?
1989.
Oh, so they were in a limousine at 3:00 in the morning in New York City. These guys were coked out of their mind, Tom.
The three men claim that they saw a woman being floated through the air along with three small beings into a large flying craft. So I guess the aliens went into her room. They're gentlemen, if nothing. And so they went in and then escorted her into the UFO. And then inside the UFO, I think they did experiments and stuff on her.
Now, here's my question.
Okay.
So a UFO comes and they bring somebody on board.
Yes.
And then they just kind of hover there?
No.
Like, why do they return people? We don't tend to do that. When we do experiments on animals, we're not like, and then we'll bring you back to the forest, little guy, and you can live out your life naturally.
Well, I mean, there are cases of people being abducted and like that's just it. They're never seen again.
Yeah, but are we sure? How sure are we that aliens did that?
I mean, it depends on the case, but I think what it is it's a lot of tag and release, which we do with animals, and which, if you're thinking about it, aliens, if they're smart enough to get here from another planet or another dimension or from the future,
Right. Go on.
They would presumably be sophisticated enough that they wouldn't just treat us completely like lab animals and just take us and kill us. That they would tag and release, which is exactly what a lot of people have claimed happened, where a lot of people have woken up, not had any memories or had kind of like foggy memories, but then had like weird scars or marks on them. And some of these people have gone to the doctor about it. And there's one doctor in particular, Dr. Roger Lear, who has removed...
Trust a doctor named Roger.
who has removed a number of alien implants from patients.
Okay, now go into some alien implants. What exactly?
So a lot of times these implants, which makes sense that it would be extremely advanced technology, we pull something out and it's like, well, from what we can tell, this is, made up of this, whatever element, but we can't really tell
Tom, what the hell is going on at your house? Who's trying to get in? Alien? Oh, no.
Tim, the worst has happened. Tim, I apologize for that interruption. It wasn't aliens. It was Amazon's. Amazon.com delivering.
Oh.
I wish. Delivering coffee to me.
Huh. Hot coffee? Do you need to go drink it before it?
Yeah, I ordered 1 cup of hot coffee earlier today, and they're just bringing it now, late tonight.
Do you think in our lifetime,
mm-hmm.
what do you think will happen first? Do you think Jeff Bezos will get to achieve his dream of being the only place anybody, but the only store, the one-stop shop, no other place to buy anything? Do you think that happens before global warming, climate change kills us all?
Tim, I think you've got your priorities all out of whack. You should be worried about aliens.
Okay.
Because they're going to do more to you before either of those things do.
Yeah, I think that's your priorities are all.
So people have had these implants removed, and of course they're not going to look like, computer circuitry. It's not going to be a little microprocessor in there.
So what are they, like rocks? Because if honestly,
no.
It's like, oh, an alien put this in me, and they cut you open, and it's a rock in there. I think the doctor has to be like, did you put this in there yourself? Is this a rock you found in the forest?
Man, one time when I was a kid, I had like this horrible foot pain, and I went to like my parents brought me a pediatrician finally, and it turned out it was a thorn I had stepped on like a month earlier. It had like worked its way all the way through my foot, and had to be pulled out the other end, or at least that's what the doctor wanted everybody to think. He might have taken one look at this and been like, I've seen this before. Aliens. But I'm not going to tell, this kid already seems pretty skittish. I'm not going to tell him about that.
Yeah, he's been going on and on about this book he saw at the library.
It's the 3rd time I've seen him this month because he keeps getting scared by this book at the library. So they are usually made up of unusual metallic elements that you do not find in the human body, and also that are shaped in some way, that are in an unnatural shape. So, right. But they're tiny, like the size of a grain of rice, because that, it makes sense. Why would they be, why would aliens have big old clunky things that they would have to put in us?
Right. They're smarter than us.
Yeah. So this guy, he takes them out for people, and they've done like research. I think sometimes they can like see radio waves coming out of them, and all kinds of nonsense. I don't know if that last part's true. I might just be saying that. Or maybe they're reactive to radio waves, kind of like an NFC tag.
What's an NFC tag?
That's like what you use at like that's what's in your like credit card or your like Apple Pay. Like a little wireless thing to pay. Got it. Not to imply that the aliens are using us to pay for things. They've probably evolved past money.
Right.
Tim, you mentioned earlier you made light of the idea of a lumberjack. And I want to tell you about a man named Travis Walton, who you might remember from a little movie called Fire in the Sky. Did you see Fire in the Sky when you were a kid?
No, but I remember for the last 25 years you talking about nothing else whenever it's been dark out. If it's been dark out, you've been like, oh, this seems a lot like Fire in the Sky. And then you'll talk for 25 minutes about Fire in the Sky.
I'm gonna read his claim because there's actually a pretty succinct one on his Wikipedia page. According to Walton, on November 5th, 1975, he was working with a timber stand improvement crew, which I think is just lumberjacks, right? Timber stand improvement crew.
Yeah,
that's
like
what are they called, janitors sometimes?
I mean, you don't need to. Tom, you don't need to disparage service employees.
Sanitation engineers. Like it's
what did they call them?
or like garbage men,
No,
sanitation,
timber.
timber stand improvement crew. I think it's just a fancy name for a lumberjack. And a custodian or a janitor isn't a service employee. They're maintenance.
Okay, so I think you should crap all over them. When
I'm not crapping.
When you're in a public place, like a restaurant or something, you always just take
I
your
haven't been
food
to a
and
restaurant in months.
you take your food wrappers and just drop them on the floor, and you're just like, yeah, the janitor will take care of this. They're less than human.
No, Tim. And I was just saying, you know how sometimes there are these jobs and they give them like fancy titles when it's like, no, you can just say lumberjack. Everybody knows what a lumberjack is. Did you look up what a timber stand improvement crew does?
Yeah, Tom, you know what?
They chop down trees, probably.
I think these are the guys
Oh, they're tying the ribbons?
that are tying the blue ribbons.
Oh, okay.
There are circumstances when a forested area can be improved upon by doing more than just allowing the trees to grow. One such circumstance would be if an area had a timber harvest in which only the most desirable mature trees were taken out and mostly inferior trees, lower value species, damage, blah, 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 another case, blah, 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 blah. TSI, timber stand improvement, involves actively managing a stand of trees to improve its species composition, structure, health, and growth. In many cases, TSI involves cutting down or deadening trees that are considered to be of poorer species or quality to improve the growing conditions for the remaining trees.
Deadening trees, not killing them, deadening them?
Yeah, they gotta use all these euphemisms.
How do they do that? Do they slit the tree's throat or something? Poison the tree? They probably poison it.
The sap shoots out a lot.
Anyway, he was working with this crew in the Apache Sitgraves National Forest in Snowflake, Arizona. Which, boy, I'm sure nowadays you don't want to be a Snowflake, Arizona resident. Everybody will be like, oh, look at the snowflaker. That's probably what the residents of Snowflake call themselves.
I don't like to get political on this show, Tom.
While riding in a truck with 6 of his coworkers, they encountered a saucer-shaped object hovering over the ground approximately 110 feet away, making a high-pitched buzz. Walton claims that after he left the truck and approached the object, a beam of light suddenly appeared from the craft and knocked him unconscious. The other 6 men were frightened and supposedly drove away. Walton claimed that he awoke in a hospital-like room being observed by 3 short, bald creatures. He claimed that he fought with them until a human wearing a helmet led Walton into another room where he blacked out as 3 other humans put a clear plastic mask over his face. Walton has claimed he remembers nothing else until he found himself walking along a highway 5 days later with the flying saucer departing above him. Now, since then...
Tom, that doesn't sound that bad.
It's pretty bad. That's a bad way to spend 5 days. And also, everybody thought so originally, the authorities thought he had been murdered by his coworkers. That, they all thought, they went to the police and they were like, holy hell, we work in the timber stand improvement crew, as you know. And our friend, he got, blasted by a beam and a UFO took him away. And apparently the authorities were like, yeah, okay, you killed your friend. And you just think we're not going to find him in the forest. And then 5 days later, he shows up and they of course took him to the hospital and everything. And it didn't make sense. He wasn't alone in the forest for 5 days because his blood, he wasn't starting to starve or dehydrated or anything. I think he might have been dehydrated. But since then, he and the other guys have taken polygraph tests that they've passed.
That doesn't sound so scary to me.
You don't think so? Oh no, I'm seeing this, Tim. 30 years after the book's release, Walton appeared on the Fox game show The Moment of Truth and was asked if he in fact was abducted by a UFO, to which he replied yes. The polygraph test determined he was lying.
Ah, that was hosted by Mark L. Wahlberg, Tom.
So yeah, who are you going to trust? Mark L. Wahlberg on a Fox game show, or, I don't know, the police in Snowflake, Arizona?
Neither? None of the above? Tom, girdling, also known as ringing, involves killing a tree, but leaving it standing upright.
Sick. The
You know what you do?
The action of a truly sick person.
You take a chainsaw and you make a 1-inch cut, a 1-inch deep cut all the way around the tree at about waist height, I guess your waist, and then an identical one 6 to 12 inches above the first one, and that prevents any nutrients, the xylem and phloem, from going up the tree.
Oh, man. That is pretty sick. That's like a real slow way to kill a tree, huh?
But that's how they deaden a tree, Tom.
How long does that take, you think?
For it to die?
Yeah.
Matter of seconds, I think.
Really? No. They don't rely on xylem and phloem that much. What, the xylem and phloem are, groggy that morning or whatever. Takes them a little bit longer.
We took biology in high school, and they taught us about xylem and phloem. Xylem goes up the tree, phloem goes down the tree.
Yeah.
And the only reason I remember that is because a friend of ours, upon being taught that, went xylem up, phloem down. And the teacher, Mr. DeCanio, flipped out and was like, "You have detention for a week."
What?
And Jerry Connolly had to go to detention for a week because he said xylem up, phloem down. And that is literally, because of that, the only thing I remember from that class. Jerry did more for me than that teacher did.
Wow. That teacher in particular was very self-conscious, always thought everybody was making fun of him.
Yeah.
And always thought because he wasn't bad. And that was the thing about him. Like he was like a semi-fun teacher. And then sometimes you would be joking along. He was like kind of like a mob, not just because he was Italian, but he was like kind of like the mob boss that all of a sudden is like Joe Pesci. Like, what, am I funny? I'm a clown to you? Where it's like we're all laughing, then you make a joke. And he's like, what the hell's that supposed to mean? What, you making fun of me?
It was that, and if somebody said something that he didn't fully hear, he just assumed.
Yeah, if he didn't fully hear it or fully understood it, he assumed it was some kind of like a teen slang slight at him.
Which, I mean, to be fair, I would think that if I was teaching
100%.
teens all day.
But that's
if a teen said anything that I didn't immediately understand, I'd be like, the fuck did you just say?
That is 110% the reason why I am not a high school teacher, because I would
there
never.
Are other reasons.
Well, now what is that supposed to imply, Tim?
There are other reasons.
I would be so paranoid about that 24 hours a day that I just wouldn't be able to get any work done. Yeah. That teacher also, I remember it was after our AP bio test. We were supposed to go on a canoe trip, and I had never been on a canoe, and I was so excited. And unfortunately, his father passed away, and they canceled the trip. And I remember not, even though, I mean, at this point I was 17, 18, it's probably 17.
You still had a goatee, though, so you were pretty old looking.
Well, what I'm saying is I wasn't 10 years old. I was essentially an adult. And I still found it fundamentally unfair because I was like, well, if he wasn't going to teach us anything, just get some other teacher to take us on this canoe trip. Because we found out the morning we all got there ready to go on the canoe trip. And they're like, bad news, guys. Instead of going on a fun canoe trip, you're going to have to go to goddamn school all day.
Yeah, that's BS. They should have told you before you showed up at school with all your canoeing gear.
Right, I bought a brand new canoe.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know that's and top of the line too. From what
I didn't know what to look for at the time. I had never been canoeing before, so I asked the salesman, well, what kind of canoe should I get? Of course, he's going to steer me towards the high end stuff, and I'm new to canoeing, so I don't know. But yeah, I just remember being like, I could name off the top of my head 5 worthless teachers that they would be doing more good taking us on a canoe trip than teaching nonsense to students.
Also, you're 18 years old. You guys can go on a canoe yourselves.
I think I tried to argue that to, like, I don't know, like the head of the department came in or something. I think he was the head of the department. I don't know who came in and delivered the bad news, but I was like, we're all adults. We can do it. I mean, that would have been.
What was the logic of you're an advanced placement biology, and at the end of the year, you're going to go on a canoe trip? Were you like looking at species of frog or something?
I think like kind of, but I think it was mostly a look, you all took the AP test. The AP test happens before the end of the year, like, you know, a couple of weeks before. So after you take the AP, it's kind of like, what are we going to do now? So that was one of the things. It was also like a reward for being good students. And we didn't get our reward. That was also one of those AP tests where, like, I did so bad the entire class. And then I got like a 4 out of 5 on the AP by using common sense.
Yeah. I went to one day of AP Bio, and it was only offered your senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember for the first day being like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to try. Like, I don't like biology. I can drop out of this class and just go to have a free period.
A lot of memorization.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah.
I like to go with my gut, Tom.
Well, and looking back on it, Tim, boy, what a hypocrite I was, because there I was, cutting open frogs and fetal pigs. But I'm going to criticize aliens for putting trackers in people?
Exactly.
A hypocrite. The worst thing I could possibly be. Yeah. So that's alien abductions, Tim. I watched this movie called Dark Skies recently with Kerry Russell from TV's Felicity.
I was thinking the film Dark Shadows, and I was like, "What? Where are you going with this?"
Oh, the Johnny Depp movie?
Yeah.
No, Dark Skies, which is about Kerry Russell and her husband and their 2 kids dealing with. It was made by like a Blumhouse, like the horror people, and it was very much and I've realized this kind of horror movie I love and hate, of the like Paranormal Activity, where it's like, oh, every night something bad is going to happen, something progressively worse. So like something bad happens and then it's like, it's the next day. All right. A new start. Maybe somebody will listen to them. Maybe they'll find the solution to this problem. And it's like, nope.
They're not going to find the solution.
It's like, nope. Guess what? Tonight's going to be worse. Something even worse is going to happen. Boy, let me tell you, there's a scene in that movie that scared the pants off me. I won't give it away.
Was it an alien?
Yeah, it was an alien. But like, oh boy, did it scare the pants off me. It was basically a like, weird stuff's. I'll give it away. Weird stuff's happening. All over. And it's like one of those things where like,
if you've listened this far, you're lucky enough to hear some Dark Shadows spoilers.
Dark Skies. It was one of those things like literally, the movie Get Out is about, where it's like multiple things have happened where it's like, oh, get out of there. Just leave. Just get out of that house. Move away. It's a loss. But like,
that wasn't what the movie Get Out was about.
Well, not the movie, but the phrase "get out."
Yeah, the phrase "get out" has been around long before the movie.
But I'm saying
more like the Amityville Horror, where they hear the voices saying "get out."
Right, but like, I don't know. Jordan Peele said that when you go to see a horror movie, that's what you hear people screaming at the screen, like "get out! Just get out of there! Just get out of that situation." which is why, a great title for a horror movie. But, yeah, so multiple things.
I'm gonna make a horror movie, and I'm gonna name it Jesus Christ.
You know what? I recently rewatched Inception, the Christopher Nolan movie, and I forgot that's one of my favorite lines in the movie. Spoilers for Inception if you've never seen it, but when Leonardo DiCaprio's wife, what's her name, Marie, the French actress, I don't know. When his wife...
You started to... People could see you started to Google it and immediately gave up and just went, I don't know. You had to type 2 words.
Not Marie. Marion... Cotillard, yeah. When, she thinks she's in a dream, so she has to kill herself to wake up, and she jumps off the building. Right after, Leonardo DiCaprio is trying to convince her not to, and then she does it. And right after she does it, Leonardo DiCaprio goes, Jesus Christ. And I don't know, for whatever reason, you don't see people say that much in movies.
Yeah.
Probably because of religion. But anyway, what was I talking about? Dark Skies. So it's one of those where, the first night...
What are we doing here?
Listen.
Okay.
The first night, somebody's opened up the fridge and they've poured the milk all over the place.
This sounds like a poltergeist situation.
No, at that point, it's like I don't know, this could have been sleepwalking, it could have been anything. The next night, she goes downstairs, and now, there's 100 different items from the kitchen balanced impossibly on each other to create, this weird pattern of light on the ceiling. It's like, all right, get the hell out of there. That is not a normal thing. I forget I think it's the next night. All the pictures are taken from the house, or maybe it was the next morning. But finally, she's like, first off, how these people are sleeping in this house is insane. But she's, walking around at night, she, hears a noise, and it's like, oh, let me check on the house. So she goes downstairs, she's checking on everything. And then she can hear her youngest son, talking to himself. So she's like, it's like a one shot.
Tom, are you telling me
Listen,
this?
Yeah. She's walking into the room, and she's like, son, you got to go to bed. And she turns the corner, and there's a fucking huge spindly alien standing over her son that turns his head to look at her. She screams, turns on the light. Both of them gone. They both disappeared.
Is that what freaked you out? Did it look like the alien from Communion?
Yeah, it did. It looked like a scarier version of that. Don't watch that movie. It's too scary. That's my advice.
If you like the show, you can find out more at tcgte.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Complete Guide. You can follow us on Instagram at tcgte.
Mm-hmm.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Your Pal Tim. You can only follow one of us.
You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Tom Reynolds.
Only if you're not following me.
If you want to support the show, check out our sponsors. Also, check out patreon.com/complete guide for books to podcast. This week, we are wrapping up Devil in a Blue Dress, or I'm wrapping up reading it. Oh, it sounds like the cops are on their way to your house, Tim.
Yeah, I've been carrying an axe around.
Yeah, Devil in a Blue Dress. I'm finishing up reading it, and you can hear all about it. I very much enjoyed the book, so patreon.com/complete guide. You can hear that and all the back episodes.
There's a Reddit and a Discord too. You can look those up.
Yeah, use the internet. You'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. Tim, has this week's episode made you any more afraid of being abducted by aliens?
I feel like you didn't talk about being abducted by aliens for all that long.
Have you ever had sleep paralysis?
I have.
Yeah. Does that
numerous
scare you?
Times. It
numerous
freaks
times.
me out.
Have you checked your body for any unusual marks after the sleep paralysis events?
I mean, I have a weird thing on my arm. I think I applied sunscreen in a weird way and just left a triangle.
No, Tim, I'm looking. No, that is a perfectly symmetrical triangle. That is, I don't think that could happen through sunscreen.
What do you think?
And also, it seems like there's like a pulsing light under it.
Yeah, but it's the summertime, Tom.
Tim, I think somebody might have implanted a Tamagotchi into your arm.
That'd be cool.
Could you imagine? Then you'd never have to worry about it dying because you didn't feed it.
You'd feed off you.
Yeah, that'd be a good movie. An evil Tamagotchi
that burrowed under your skin.
Yeah,
stole your life force.
And they would poop. Remember, they would poop in the thing. You'd have to clean up their poop.
I never had a Tamagotchi. I didn't feel pressured into doing that.
I had one. It was pretty neat. I liked it. I think it was one of those things where, like, I had somehow suckered my parents into going to Toys R Us, and they just happened to have, gotten a shipment in that day. So I got one. I got two. One's still in the package. Maybe that's worth money. I should look into that.
What happens when they died? It was just dead, right? The plastic was useless?
No, you just had to start it over.
Oh. See, I was worried to throw out that plastic.
No.
Maybe I'll look into buying one now.
All right. We'll see you next week.
That was a HeadGum podcast.